Okay, so welcome. Here's lesson. It's a continuation from the previous classes that we've had. In the previous classes, we are talking about the introduction to statistics, where we looked at different terminologies that we are going to be using in this course. Okay. We look at a number of definitions. What is a sample? What is a population? All that. Okay. And then today I'm just following up here with that. I'm getting the sample part, and then we want to go into details with the sample. Okay, so today's topic is what we call as sampling. Okay, and if you know what a sample is, it will be very easy for you to actually understand this concept. Okay, so sampling is that process that you undergo when getting a sample from a population. Okay, so we said the population is everything that is under consideration, right? And then we said a sample is just a portion of that population. So now the process by which you get that portion from the population, by which you get that sample from the population, is what we call as sampling. Okay, so today we are going to look at the following objectives, which I have here. Okay, so you can see on the objectives there, we are saying today we want to define. Okay, we define a sample, even if we already did. Okay, we are going to define a sample and define sampling. Okay, and then we are going to look at the importance of having a sample, and then the types of sampling methods. Okay, so this is high-yield. Okay, so this is high-yield, very important concept here. Most of the questions that will come under sampling will just come from the types of sampling methods, okay? And then under these types of sampling method, we want to look at the steps, okay, in each of these methods. And then lastly, we want to look at the calculation in each and every method that we're going to discuss. Okay, so let's go. So a sample, of course, we already defined it. We said it's actually just a representation, right? We said it's a representation from the population. Okay, so you can say a representative subset of a population. That's what we are calling as a sample. Okay, and then moving on, we can see or look at this illustration that I have there. Okay, so you can see on this illustration, we have this population. So we are considering all the people here, okay? And then if you just get some of these people and then we put them aside here, is what we call as the sample, okay? So now, this process of getting a sample from the population is what we call as sampling, okay? Is what we call as sampling. I'm sure I put the definition there. Okay, so if I move forward, you can see here we are saying what is sampling, and then the definition I put it here. Okay, so you can define it in your own words. Okay, you can define it in your own words as long as you mean the same thing. So for me, I was saying it's the process, okay, of choosing a representative sample from a target population, okay, and then and collecting data from that sample in order to understand something about the whole population. Okay, this is the process of sampling. Okay, so maybe we come at Apex, we are conducting a survey. Okay, but we face a challenge because we have a lot of Apex students, so we can't ask everyone. Okay, so we'll just get maybe one person from the first years, one person from the second years, just like that until those who are doing maybe 6th year in medicine, okay? So when you get those 6 people, we are going to ask them certain questions, okay? And depending on the answers that those 6 people are going to give, we'll get a general understanding of what all students at Apex are like. Okay, so if, for example, we ask the pre-med first year student, we ask them like, how do you take your courses, or what can you say about your courses? You find that most of them will just say maybe they are difficult, okay, like we don't understand in class, something like that. So if I'm able to get those feedback from just a few people, then I can get a general representation or a general understanding of the whole population. Like I say, oh, student at Apex, they find the course, maybe math, they find it to be difficult, okay? So that process of obtaining that sample, okay, in order to understand something about the population is what we call as our DISCRETE sampling there. Okay, and then we move on. This is just a illustration, okay? Explaining what I was explaining. And then we can look at, okay, so this is the definition again for sampling. So if you don't want to use that first one that I gave, you can also use this one here. You can say it's a method for selecting a sample from a population in a randomized manner, okay, so as to minimize sampling error. Okay, so you can also use this definition, and then we can move. Okay, so please, guys, if you don't understand anything, please tell me to pause, and then I explain again. Okay, and then we want now to talk about the importance of this sampling, okay, or the importance of the sample. Okay, why should we get a sample from a large population? Why can't we just test all the people? Okay, or we can ask the questions to all the people. Why? Okay, so the importance of this sampling, one of them is that sampling reduces the cost and the time of research. So what does this mean? So instead of asking maybe 2,000 students at Apex, I'll just ask 5, okay? So that will consume my time, okay? And it will reduce even the cost, because if I'm going to ask all the 200 students Apex, it means I'll have to be there maybe for 5 days, or I don't know, a month, okay? And that month will require food, transport, it will be so expensive. But if I ask only 5, okay, it means I can go there just in one day, and then I ask, and then I get the general picture, you get, okay? So it means sampling, the first importance or the advantage, the first one, we are saying sampling reduces the cost and the time of what? Research. Okay, and then moving to the second one here, it says that sampling improves the quality of data. Okay, so if you have a lot of data or a large data set, you are more likely to make errors. Okay, you are more likely to make errors. But if you just get your information from a sample, okay, it means that information will be more accurate. Okay, so the sampling improves the quality of data. And then number 3, what can we say is another importance? We're saying the sampling enhances the generalizability of research findings, okay? So it will be easier for you to get a general picture if you have a sample. So this is another importance. So you can take them, you can take note, and then the last one here, they're saying stratified random sampling increases precision. Okay, so this stratified random sampling is one of the methods that we are going to talk about. Okay, so maybe you understand this point when we talk about this type of sampling there. Okay, so these are some of the importances. And then we can now talk about the sampling methods or the types of sampling. Okay, so we have generally, we have 2 types of sampling methods, okay? We have those that are probability sampling, okay? And then we have those that are non-probability sampling. And then this under probability sampling, okay, we have simple random sampling, we have systematic random sampling, then we have stratified random sampling, and then we have cluster random sampling. Okay, but for Apex, you guys only focus on these three. Okay, so we'll talk about the simple random sampling, the systematic, and the stratified. This one here, not so much. Okay, but it will be just nice in case they bring it, just know it, okay? So I'm going to talk about this simple, systematic, and the stratified. Even these guys here at Apex, they don't talk about them, okay? Their focus are these three. Okay, so let's move, and then I have a table here where I put the types and some descriptions and an example there at the end. Okay, so we have random sampling here, okay? And then we have a description here and an example there, okay? So you can go through this table, okay? Once I'm done explaining all these one by one. So I'll go straight to explaining them one by one, okay? So I said the most common one is what we call as random sampling. Okay, so what is random sampling? Okay, so what is random sampling? So random sampling, okay, so this is a description here. We are saying this is just a gathering, okay, gathering a representative sample from a population where each member in that population has an equal chance of being selected, okay? So if they ask you to define what random sampling is, okay, sometimes they say simple random sampling, okay? If they ask you to describe it, you just say, this is a method, okay, in which you obtain a representative sample from a population, okay, where each member in that sample has an equal chance of being selected, okay? So once you give that definition, then it would mean that you are describing a simple random sampling, okay? And then example here, I can give an example. We're saying using a random number generator to select students in class to complete a task. Okay, so this random number generator can be in different forms. Okay, for example, you get 5 papers like that, and then you write names of 5 students there. Maybe you want to choose the class rep, right? Want to choose the class rep. So you put here there's John, there's Paul, maybe there's Mary. We have Jane, we have Joel, and then there we have Frederick, okay? So a random sample generator, maybe we'll write these names of these 2 papers, and then just put them on the desk, okay? And then we try to mix them, right? We try to mix them, and then we just pick a random paper there, okay? We'll pick a random paper there, and then we say, oh, John has won. So John is the class representative. Okay. So that kind of sampling is what we call as the simple random sampling. Okay. And that method that you use to write names on this paper and then pick is what we are using here as the random number generator. Okay. If you go to these English people, okay, they have a machine where they put those 2 papers, and then it will do something like blah, 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 and then they will pick them, okay? Or if you are a football fan, okay, when they are making those draws, I'm sure some of you have watched this. When they're making those draws like Chelsea face Manchester United, okay, they'll just put them in that round thing, and then it will start rotating, and then they'll randomly pick a ball there, and then they'll open it, they find a team, and then they put it against another team. Okay, so that's what we call a random number generator. Okay, so in this method, we use a random number generator, and then here I put the advantages of this type and even the disadvantages. Okay, so these ones here, you can actually go through them, okay? But the most important thing that I'm going to focus on is how do you get a sample using this method, okay? What steps should you follow for you to get a sample using this method? Okay, and that is described on my next slide here. Okay, so random sampling, okay? So in order to take a random sample, the first step, okay, is to list every member in a certain population that you've been given. Okay, you list every member in that population. So for example, if I have the alphabet, okay, so the alphabet has 26 letters. So if I'm asked to do a random sampling on the alphabet, I'm going to list all the members in that population, meaning I'll list A, B, C, D, until what? Until Z. This is what this point here means, okay? And then number two, after you list them, you associate each of the population members with a unique reference number, okay? So let's, that means that, for example, A, I'm going to say A should be represented by 1, B should be represented by 2, C by 3, until Z, which will be represented by what? 26. Okay, so this is what the second step here means. And then the third step will be to use a random number generator to select the number of data points in the sample. Okay, so this random number generator here is what I was explaining there. Okay, so you just get these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, and then you put them maybe even in a dish. Okay, and then you start selecting one by one from there, depending on the sample that you need. If maybe they said we have to select 10 letters, okay, from the alphabet randomly. So after you list them, you assign a certain reference number, okay, and then you start picking them there randomly. So if I have to my papers here, papers up to 26. So this one can be 1, 3, that one 13, that one 14. Okay, I'll start picking those numbers randomly. So if I pick one, let's say the first one, that the number that I pick is 5. I'll put the 5 there. The second one I pick maybe to be 10. Okay, the third one I'll pick maybe to be 11. Okay, so it means after I pick these numbers, then I'll know that whatever number here will represent 5 is what I'm going to put in my sample here. Okay, whatever number represent 5, I'm going to put it in my sample here. Whatever number represent 10, I'll put it there. Even the 11, all the number that you get here according to the sample size that you want to get. Okay, so I don't know if there are any questions. You are free to ask. Okay, someone, okay. You're free to ask. Is it clear, guys? Are we moving together? Hello, are we together? You can find you are talking alone, okay?
We are together.
All right, thank you for the feedback. Okay, so this is about random sampling, and then this here summarizes whatever I was explaining, and then let's do an example. Okay, so the same example there, but now let's do it. So they are saying there are 26 letters in the English alphabet, and then they are saying use random sample to obtain a sample of 10 letters with no duplicate. Okay, so meaning one letter cannot be picked twice. It cannot be picked twice. Okay, so meaning one letter there cannot be picked twice. That's what it means there. Okay, so how are we going to look at this question? How are we going to look at this question? Okay, so let's do it. Okay, so the first step we said is to list the elements of this population. Okay, so you can see here I'm saying first step, list every member of this population. So I can say A. Okay, I won't list all of them, but okay, C, D, E, F, okay, G, H, I, J, K, L. Okay, so I can end at L there. So this is the first step, right? Okay, And then we said the second step here is associate each of the members with a unique reference number, right? So we are going to say A is 1, B is 2. Okay, let me write the numbers on top so that I have space for the down ones. So A is 1, B is 2, C is 3, D is 4, and then this E will be 5, and then this F will be 6. Okay, so this will be 7, this will be 8, 9, 10, 11, and then I have 12. Okay, so it means we'll continue going until we reach Z. Okay, so Z will be my number 26, right? Okay, so we've done 2 steps here. And then the third step here, it says use a random number generator to select the data points in this sample. So remember, we said we want a sample that has 10 letters there. Okay, we want a number that has 10 letters. Okay, so let's say I put these representative numbers here. I put them in a bowl like that. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, all the way up to 26. I put them in a bowl here, and then I shake this bowl so that these guys can mix. Okay, and then from this bowl now, I start picking my numbers one by one. Okay, so I need 10 numbers there. So for example, if my first number that I'll pick from this bowl here, let's say my first number is 9. Okay, so I'll put 9 there. My second number is 6. I'll put 6. My second number is, let's say 10. My third number, 10. My fourth one, we say 5. Okay, let's make the first one 7 here, so that here we have maybe 1. I have 3. I have 4. I have 2. Okay, which one have I not picked? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 8. Okay, so we have our first 8 numbers that have been picked there. Okay, so after picking these numbers now, I'm just going to write the letters that represent these numbers. Okay, so according to these ones here, it means my number that I would have picked will just be 7. Which one represents 7? Okay, so you can see that the G there represents 7. Okay, so the G has been picked. Okay, and then 9, the 9 has been picked. 6, the 6 here has been picked. And then we have, okay, let me do this. Okay, so we have 10. Okay, so 10 has been picked. 5, okay, so 5 has been picked. We also know 4, 3, 2, and 1 there. Okay, so these are the numbers that have been picked. So it means my sample is going to represent or to have those numbers. Okay, my sample of those numbers, those letters, I mean, so it will be A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, J, K. I think you put it up at J. What is number 10? J, yeah. So yeah, so my sample will just have A, B, C, D up to J. Okay. So here they can pick them just in an orderly way for the sake of the illustration. Okay. But in this sample here, if you pick them randomly, you can have Z, A, X, Q, P, L, M. Okay. You can have any letters here as long as they're 10. Right. Okay. So any questions on the simple random sampling there? Any questions there, or can I proceed? Is there any question, guys? Okay. Okay, so let's go now to systematic sampling. Okay, so that was simple sampling, and then we can go to what we call as the systematic sampling. Okay, so how does this guy operate? Okay, so you can also see here and put the description, the sampling method, and an example, advantages and disadvantages. Okay, so how can we describe this systematic sampling? Okay, so systematic sampling is a type of probability sampling that select items of data at regular intervals from a population. Okay, so what do they mean by regular intervals and the like? Okay, so it means if, for example, I have numbers, okay, I have numbers from 1 to 100. I'm going to select members from that population at regular intervals. Okay, maybe I say I'm going to be selecting, I'll select the first 20 people from that 100 people. Okay, I'm going to be selecting them at the interval of 5. So it means I'm going to pick the numbers 1, 5, 10, 15. Okay, so no. If my first number is 5, not 1, okay, if my first number is 5, and I'm picking those numbers at the interval 5, it means my next number will be 10, 15, 20, 25, 35, until I have the required number sample that I want. Okay, that's what it means to pick or select data at regular intervals from that population. Okay, so how do you find that sampling interval that you want? Okay, so we have a formula here that you should take note for you to find the sampling interval. Okay, so the interval is just the population size divided by the sample size. Okay, so for this type of sampling here, you always have to know how large the population is, okay, and then how large your sample is. So if, for example, I have 100 as my population, okay, and then the sample that I want to get from here is 20. So it means my interval will be what? 100 divided by 20, which would just be 5. So my first element, okay, can be 5 or it can be anything, okay? It can be 1. And then from 1, it means I'll go to 6, 11, and then 16, just like that in the intervals of 5. Okay, so that's what systematic sample is. So I put a definition here. I'm saying every member in the population is given a number, just like we saw in the simple sampling, right? Then after the first member is chosen, the remaining members are chosen from a given interval. Okay, so maybe it will sink in when we do an example. So let's go to the example. Okay, so okay, before we go to the example, we have to know the steps to take, okay, in order for us to do this random sampling. Okay, so this random sampling, it has 5 steps that you have to do, okay? So this is a very common question. It comes, okay, in all the tutorial sheets. They will ask you, describe or explain how to get a sample using the systematic sample method. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. Okay, so we are going to say the first step is to order the population and give each entry a unique reference number, just like we did with the ABCD, right? So I'm sure I understand. Okay, so you number the population. So we say maybe A is 1, B is 2, C is 3. Okay, so whatever population that you have, make sure that each member of that population, you give it a unique reference number. Okay, even I can give an example, you yourself. Okay, so you can say we get Jessica, okay, we get Matilda, we get maybe Paul, okay, and then their reference numbers just be their computer or their student numbers. That's what we mean here, okay? So this is the first step. And then the second step is to calculate the number of items in the data sample, okay? Sometimes they don't give the number of the sample direct, okay? They can just say 10% of the population. So it means you have to find 10% of that population to know how many items are going to be in the sample. Okay, and then once you know the sample, okay, you can calculate your interval. And then we said, how do you calculate this interval? You divide the number of the population over the number of the sample so that you get your interval here. Okay, and then after you get your interval, okay, go back to where you've put this population in an order, in a random way, okay, and then use a random number generator. Okay, so from that population, just pick randomly a sample there. Okay, so if your first number is 7 and then your interval is 5, it means the first number is 7, the second number will be what? 7 plus 5, it will be 12. The other number will be 17. It means this is how you're going to be picking the members in that sample. Okay, and then after picking the random generator, okay, the first step there is to select the remaining items of the data, okay, following the given sequence. So this following the given sequence is what we are saying as following the interval that you found. Okay, so let's look at it. Okay, so this is a summary you can read. Then let's look at an example. So example 1 there. So we are saying a company produces 100 biscuits per minute. Okay, so in 1 minute, the company will produce 100 biscuits. And then we are saying a machine checks the weight, okay, of 10% of those biscuits. Okay, so out of those 100 biscuits that are being produced per minute, only 10% of those, okay, are checked for the weight. And then here they're saying the biscuits pass through the machine one at a time, okay? And then they're saying use systematic random sampling to select the biscuits for the sample over what? 3 minutes. So here it's very important, okay? For the sample over 3 minutes. Okay, so we are saying in 1 minute, 100 biscuits are produced, okay? What about in 3 minutes? It will mean we just multiply 3 multiplied by 10, right? Okay, so it will be 300 biscuits are produced in 3 minutes. Okay, so those 300, they will be your population. They will be your population. And then for you to find the sample, you just say 10% of this 300. Okay, so number 1, they're saying order the population and give each data entry a unique reference number. Okay, so we are saying as each biscuit passes through the machine one at a time, we can assume that the first biscuit is number 1, then the second biscuit is number 2, the third biscuit is number 3, the fourth biscuit is number 4, just like that. Okay? So remember, we have how many biscuits? 300 biscuits. And from this 300, we just want to select 10% as our sample. Okay, so this 10% of this is just 30 biscuits. So out of the 300, we want to select 30. Okay, so we have given the data point a unique reference number, right? We are saying if the first biscuit passes through that point is the biscuit number 1, and then the second is number 2, the third is 3, fourth, fifth, just like that until the 300th biscuit. Okay, and then from there, we're saying calculate the number of items in the sample. Okay, so what are we going to do? In 3 minutes, okay, there will be 3 multiplied by 100, 300 biscuits. Okay, we already did this. And then as the company checks 10% of them, we're just going to 10% of the 300. So it means your sample only needs how many? 30. So we want to select 30 biscuits from the 300 using systematic random, systematic sampling. So what are we going to do? Okay, the third one is to calculate the interval. Of course, you have to calculate the interval. Okay, so the population is 300 and the sample is 30. So what is my interval? My interval there, I'll just, okay, so this is what I was doing here. You can read through. Okay, so we are saying interval is just equals to the population size divided by the sample size, which is 300 over 30, and this will give us a 10 there. Okay, so it means my interval is 10. So it means if I pick my first biscuit out of those 300 to be biscuit number 4, it means my next biscuit should be 14. Okay, because that is the interval from the other one to the other one. Often compita 10 per cut. Then even from the 14, it means my next one will be biscuit 24. My next one will be biscuit 34, just like that. If my first number was 4. Okay, so here we are saying we need to pick every 10th term in the data. Okay, so the fourth step now is to use a random generator to select the first item in that data. Okay, so let's say in this, for example, once I use the random generator, I got 6, right? Okay, so it means we have to choose the first item of the data in the sample as the 6th biscuit. Okay, so it means the next one will be what? The 16th biscuit. The next one will be the 26th. The next one will be the 36th. We are going in the intervals of 10. The next one will be 46 until we have 10 biscuits. Okay, so the fifth step here, we're saying select the remaining items following the given sequence, meaning the interval that we found. Okay, meaning the interval that we found. So you can see here, if I list all the 300 biscuits here, so I was trying to list here, but I couldn't put all the 300. I just ended at 39. So it means from this, I'm just being selecting from 6, I go to 16, to 26, to 36, to 46, to 56, 66, 76, 86, 96, 106, until I have what? 10 biscuits. Okay, so we are saying the sample will remain there for, okay, did I just say 10? Okay, the sample is 30, right? Yeah, the sample is 30. So we're going to pick biscuits until we have 30 biscuits. Okay, so they will be in that sequence there. So we are saying the sample will therefore contain 30 biscuits with the following numbers. So if you put all the numbers there for these biscuits to be 80, you can see that you have these numbers there. Okay, so these are the biscuits that you are going to pick for you to have those 30 biscuits that you want if you're using systematic random sampling. Systematic sampling, not random. Okay, so 6, just like that, following the interval that you have. So you can see all these are differing by 10, right? Okay, so meaning that when you are finding this, you don't find the same answer as your friend. So in the exam or in the test, in case you see your friend is finding another answer, don't think that what you're finding is wrong, right? So just continue with it as long as you know what you're doing, okay? Because another person can pick the first number to be maybe 2. So it means the second number will be 12. The other one will be 22. The other one will be 32. Just like that until you have 30 biscuits. The other one can pick 1. Okay, it means the other one is 10. 11, I mean, because you add 10 to this now. Add 10 to this, you have 21. Oh, you have 31. Oh, I have 41. Just like that until you have 30 biscuits. Okay, so this is what we call as systematic sampling. Okay, so know how to go about it and know how to define it, know how to describe those steps that you need to take when you are using this method. Okay, and I've outlined them very, very clearly in my notes. So when I upload these notes, please go through them so that when you go to school, you know where to start from, right? Okay, so let's go to the last one, which is stratified sampling. Okay, stratified sampling. I've put sampling method, description, and the example. Okay, so let's read what this is. So we are saying stratified sampling is a sampling method using proportional representation. Okay, so the population is divided into smaller subgroups, and those smaller subgroups are what we call as the strata. So in case this question comes, define the strata. Just say it smaller subgroups of the population when you're using stratified sample. Okay, so saying the population is divided into smaller subgroups that are called strata, with the number taken from each subgroup proportional to the size of the subgroup. So they're saying to find a stratified sample, we need to know how many data entries are in each subgroup and the total size. Okay, so I think, let me go to my board for this one. I explain it. Okay, so if, for example, a student at Apex are going for a trip, okay, they're going for a trip, they are coming to Unza or they are going to Unza, I don't know. Okay, and then they say in that trip, they need 100 students from Apex, okay? And then from Apex, we have different years. So we can say we can get from the first years, we can get some people. From the second years, we can get some people. And we say maybe we end at 30 years. Third years, we can get some people, okay? So stratified sampling says that from these first years, we are going to get a population, even from the second years, even from the third years. So let's say for the first years, we're just going to get 10% of the first years, okay? So it will mean that I'll just find 10% of the 100. So I have 10 students. That will be first years in this trip. And then from the second years, let's say we will get 40%, okay? So it will mean, what is 40% of this? It will just be 40 students. 40 students, okay? And then from the third years, let's say we get 50% of the students that are third years. So it means I'll have 50 students here that are third years, okay? So what we've done here is that we've obtained this sample of 100 students, okay, from a lot of students here that are in these different categories, okay? So we are saying from the first years, we only obtain 10%, second, 40, third, 50%. And then this will be the actual numbers there. Okay, so this type of sampling that I've used here is what we call as stratified sampling. Okay, so now let's go back to the notes here, and then we can do an example. Okay, so they're saying smaller groups of strata within the sample are selected proportionally to the population. So this proportionally here means you'll be given either a percentage there, okay, or a ratio, something like that. Okay, so for you to obtain samples using this stratified sampling, you need to take the following steps, okay? So the first one, they're saying calculate how many items of data will be selected for the sample. Okay, so in that case, the example that I get, we wanted 100 students from Apex, okay? So you have to calculate that number. And then number two, we are saying calculate how many items of the data will be selected in each subcategory, okay? So I'm selecting 100 students that are from Apex, and then I'm subdividing them into first years, second years, third years. So after calculating the total for the sample, let's say 100, okay? And then you calculate how many items are going to be selected from each subcategory. So we said from the first year it was 10, from the second it was 40, and then from the third it was 50. Okay, and then after that, check that number of items of the data matches the sample size. So make sure when you add this, okay, they'll give you 100 there. And then the fourth step is that select each individual items from a subgroup using random or systematic sampling technique. Okay, so we've talked about how to use this and how to use this. Okay, so in this stratified, there's the use of the random. If you want, you can use systematic. Okay, so let's look at an example here. Okay, so this is a summary you can read and then an example there. Okay, so here they're saying the student council is carrying out a survey. They want to collect a stratified sample of 10% of students in years 7 to 11. So meaning 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 11. Okay, so I want to collect students from those years, 10% of these students, okay? And then they're saying calculate the number of students in each year group that will take part in the survey. So for us to calculate this, we're going to use stratified sample. Okay, so remember we have the years 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So we want to calculate how many from each of these different years. Okay, but in total, we just want 10%. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so we are given a table here. We're given a table. This is a table that we've been given. We're saying in year 7, we have 342 students. In year 8, we have 330. In year 9, we have those. In year 10, those. In year 11, those. And then the total, when I add all these students here, is this guy. Okay, so this is the population here of the students from year 7 to 11. Okay, or you can say grade 7 to grade 8, just like that, something like that. Okay, so from here, the first step we said is to calculate how many items of the data will be selected for the sample. Okay, so remember here when I go back, we said 10% of the students from 7 to 11. And here we see that the total is that one. So for us to calculate the sample, we're just going to find 10% of that number. So we're going to do 10% of that number, right? Okay, so this is the first step here. Then calculate how many items of data is selected for a sample. So I was saying here, as we know that there are 1,652 students in school. Okay, and the question asks for a sample size of 10%. We need to calculate 10% of this. So 10% of this, you get a decimal number, which is 165.2. Okay, so because this is a decimal number, you're just going to round it off the nearest 10 there, or to the nearest whole number. Okay, so when you round off this, we know that it will still remain 165 because this guy is less than 5. Okay, so it means our sample should have 165 students. Okay, so that will be the total sample. And then we want to find out now how many students from this 165 will be from year 7, how many will be from year 8, how many will be from year 9, how many will be from 10, and how many will be from year 11 there. Okay. So this is what we have here. Okay. So the second step there, we are now saying that calculate how many items of data will be selected in each subcategory. Okay. So we will now calculate 10% of each year group and round off each value to the nearest integer or whole number and write these values below in the table. Okay, so when I go to the table here, you can see. So if I find 10% of those students that are in year 7, I'm finding 34.2. And then we round off to the nearest whole number. So meaning here will just be 34 students are needed from the year 7. I find 10% of this, I just find 33. It means 33 students are needed from year 8. 10% of the year 9, I find 31.6, but I round off here, it means 32 should come from year 9. And then here we found it was 44 that should come from year 10. And then 32 should come from year 11 there. Okay, and then the third step is to check that the number of items in the data matches the sample size. So if we add this guy here, we add this guy here, we also add this guy here, this guy, okay, and that guy. Are we going to achieve our 165? This is it, the next step here. So we are saying check that the number of items of data matches the sample size. So adding all these numbers that we got there when we're doing my 10% in each subcategory, we see that we get the 165 that we want, okay, which matches the sample size. So we are done with what this question was asking. So from year 7, we are going to get 34. Year 8, we are going to get 33. Year 9, okay, just like that. Okay, so we are done. And then down here, I have exam sample questions. Okay, I have exam sample questions. So you can pass through depending on what I've explained. If you have any question, my inbox is ever free. Okay, you can just inbox me, then I'll be able to assist. But still, I shall make a session where we are going to be solving these questions. So you can look at them here. So here they're saying define simple random sampling, systematic, stratified, what we've just looked up at, right? Okay, and then here they even give you the table here. And then you can see these questions that I was saying, they're very important. Here you can see, explain how you would choose a sample using simple random sample. So you have to know those steps. So we said you first organize or list down all the population, then assign a number to that population, and then use a random generator to have the sample that you want. So that was under this simple random sampling. Okay, you can also see, explain how you choose a sample using systematic, interval, random sampling. Okay, so everything here that I've taught is actually in the questions. Okay, so I want you guys to try this out, and then in the next session we are going to solve them so that you see if you understood what we are learning. Okay, and then this is another question here that I put, almost the same. Okay, and then we are done. And these are the services that we offer. Okay, and if you want to register, you can just contact me on that now. So I don't know if there are any questions pertaining to what we've discussed today. Are there any questions before I close the class? Hello? Is it clear? Everything is okay? Okay, so if there's no response, it means people are okay or they have not heard. But if you've not heard, I'll upload the video on the drive. So you can watch it, try to think about it until you understand, because you are going to find this in school opens. Okay, so have a blessed night and continue doing Tuma studies, guys.